I will not be silent. Shame is our biggest enemy here.
Calling for reform, victims of abuse by church clergy say they need change, not only for their own justice, but so that abusers can be stopped before they attack again.
Specifically, we're talking about the statute of limitations that exists for older abuse cases. All of this just 2 months after the Austin Catholic Diocese released a list of 22 priests with credible allegations of child sex abuse in their files. As
KXAN Investigator Brittany Glas reports, the Survivors Network for Those Abused by Priests wants clergymen in every denomination to join with victims in pushing for reforms.
This is a photograph of me approximately a year before I was sexually abused by my youth minister.
Carol Midbow is the Austin support group leader for the Survivors Network for Those Abused by Priests, or SNAP. She says her abuse happened in Minnesota, inside the Lutheran church.
By the time I reported to law enforcement, the statute of limitations had already expired.
Jim Cochran's story is similar. He says he was abused by his Christian youth pastor in Oklahoma.
It was a long 38 years. It took me down some pretty dark paths, and finally my life was completely wrecked. And through the process of recovery, I recalled the events from those days when I was 12 years old.
Both delayed outcries of abuse.
What happened to me as a childhood sexual abuse victim was not my fault, and it's not your fault either.
We need to improve our laws and protections for victims and responsible adults who report.
Right now, according to Texas law, it doesn't matter when victims of child sexual assault report to law enforcement. The case can be prosecuted now or 20 years from now. There's no time limit. But that wasn't the case until September 2007.
But for looking backwards, we still have limited windows for childhood survivors that were abused in the past. So SNAP would like to see all statute of limitations lifted.
Without the support of our government officials and without the support of our families and our clergy, it becomes a life sentence for those who have experienced childhood sexual abuse, and nobody should have to live with that for the rest of their lives.
SNAP is also asking local churches to encourage their communities to report to law enforcement first and then report internally. We've been keeping tabs on more than a dozen law enforcement agencies and district attorneys' offices across Central Texas to find out if any new investigations have started since the list was released. At last check, no new investigations or allegations have been brought forward. Robert.
And under a new proposal in the Texas legislature, if someone reports alleged sexual abuse by an employee or a volunteer at a charitable organization, the person who made the report cannot be held civilly liable, meaning they are protected from potential lawsuits. The hope is it will encourage more reporting. House Bill 4345 is scheduled for a public hearing on Monday in committee.
The Pope's response to the abuse scandal hasn't always been met with praise, but today he enacted a law to try to prevent future abuse at Vatican City. Starting in June, all Vatican personnel and diplomats must immediately report allegations of sexual abuse to authorities. It also sets up background check rules that apply to anyone who is hired. While it only applies to Vatican City for now, it could serve as a model to be used on a larger scale.